Hello and welcome to the webinar. My name is Roland and I will be the host for this webinar together with Ilkka. And the reason we are having two hosts for this event is because Ilkka is having Jack to come to Finland and I'll have Jack to come to Estonia. So we have Passion for Success event coming up in those both countries. And then that's the reason we are co-hosting it together. And Ilkka, can you tell something about our webinar guest?
Yeah, our webinar guest today is our main speaker from our Passion for Success seminar. And we are really glad and excited to introduce this webinar guest. He's the author of this book, Chicken Soup for the Soul. This was the first book that I read from him. He's the author of many other New York Times bestseller books. And the most famous books that you might know here on this area might be the Success Principles. And that will be his topic also in our seminar. He's a highly successful entrepreneur, well-known international speaker, and star of the movie of The Secret as well. And his name is obviously Jack Canfield.
Yeah. And today we'll be covering the 5 most important success principles and how you could implement them in your life so that you can get from where you are today, where you really want to be, and hopefully already in 2017. And also, if you stay till the end of the webinar, we will be giving away a few tickets for the event. So stay with us and let's get right into it. Hello, Jack.
Hello, guys.
Hi, Jack.
Hello.
Good to see you.
Yeah, it's really great to see you. It's funny that we're actually in 3 different time zones. We are in the morning, in the lunchtime, and in the dinner. So you in US, I'm in Dominican Republic, and Ilkka in Finland. So that's really great. But you have written the book Success Principles that includes 64 different principles. Can you tell why applying success principles is really important in people's lives?
Well, before I learned these success principles, I was not a very happy person. I wasn't fulfilled financially. I was broke all the time. I didn't enjoy the work I was doing. I didn't have any relationships that worked. I wasn't that healthy. I was way overweight. And so I was just kind of what I would call average, mediocre life. And then I met a man named W. Clement Stone, who was worth $600 million. And he was a entrepreneur, very successful. And I went to his foundation that he had started and took some classes with some of his top people and eventually with him. And I learned these principles of success that I started applying to my life. And I remember when I first met him, I was eating 21-cent dinners at night. Literally, it was a can of tomato paste and a bag of spaghetti noodles. Today, it would be top ramen for the students in college. And today, I go out and spend like, $200-300 on dinner with my wife. And so what happened was he taught me these principles, and I started applying them to my life. And all of a sudden, I started doubling and tripling my income. I started having greater health. I had more energy. I wasn't shy anymore. I was more willing to take risks. And so I realized there are some universal principles that when you apply them in the right way, what I call a system of success, it's like knowing the combination to a lock. If you know the combination to a lock, doesn't matter if you went to university or not, doesn't matter if you're male or female, born rich, born poor, have a high IQ or low IQ, the lock has to open. The problem is a lot of people are missing some of the numbers, and if they have some of the right numbers, they got them in the wrong order. And so they're working really, really, really hard, but they're not achieving the success they want, or they've peaked out at a certain level of success. Maybe now they're, a top salesperson, but they want to be a regional manager, or they're making, $200,000 a year, but they'd like to be making $1 million a year. And so when you apply these principles of success, which are universal, they work in sports, they work in relationships, they work for your health, they work for finance, they work for, being an entrepreneur, making more money with your company, having social impact in the world, ending hunger, working on global warming, whatever it is you want to do. If you apply these principles correctly, you get exponential impact in terms of results. So it's really, I think, really important that people know these principles. Just to give you one example, I did a one-day workshop for a Remax Group. It's a real estate company in Indiana. And within the next year, 85% of the people in that company doubled or tripled their income. and the organization went from $500 million to $1 billion a year in gross sales, and that was just from one day. So basically, the principles are not taught in school. Nobody knows what they are for the most part. Some people take a lot of seminars like you guys, and so you learn these principles late in life, but once you apply them, you start to get great results. So basically, you know, this is an opportunity, whether it's through the book, through seminars, through the webinars like this, whatever, to keep adding the pieces you're missing until you have a complete system of success.
Thank you, Jack. This is inspiring already to hear your story, part of it. And this is, you said that these principles has not been taught in school. And this is funny in a way that we didn't know with Roland earlier, but when we met and we built our own companies in our own countries, we both have the same idea that we want to teach things that were not taught in school.
Mm-hmm.
So Success Principles is right in the middle of the game. There's so many principles. What do you, if you have to choose like 5 the most important principles that you would like to teach us, what would those be?
Well, when I do the workshop, we'll go deeper into this and we'll do more. But for the day, basically, I think the first thing you have to do is you have to take 100% responsibility for your life. Most people are living in what we call victim consciousness. They believe other people are doing it to them. Other people are the people that are making their life either successful or miserable. And so we tend to get into blaming. We blame the government. We blame, you know, right now everyone in America is blaming Donald Trump for things that are not going on. People blame Brexit. People blame, you know, the Saudis. People blame China. People blame the weather, you know, the economy, the recession, and so forth. And the reality is all of those things just are. And so you see people making lots of money, people being very happy, people being very successful in the middle of the same conditions that other people are not. And so we know it's not the condition that's producing the result. So I teach a little formula called E plus R equals O. The event in your life that occurs, you then have a response to that event, and that produces an outcome. And if you don't like the outcomes, it's a simple mathematical formula. 2 plus 2 is always going to equal 4. So if there's a recession going on and you keep doing what you did before the recession, you're going to end up getting 4. So what happens is you've got to do a 3 or a 4 in response to the 2, meaning you've got to change your behavior, you got to change your thinking, you have to change what you visualize, who you hang out with, what you read, etc. And so change requires being uncomfortable. Most people don't want to do that. You know, I do that little exercise that a lot of people do where you fold your hands like this, and everyone can do this if you're watching. Notice which thumb is on top, your right or your left. And then unfold your hands, do it again. You do it the exact same way. It's called a habit. But unfold your hands, move all your fingers up a notch and see which the other thumb's on top. Most people go, oh, that's uncomfortable, that's awkward, that's weird, I don't like it. And the reality is when you do that, that's called change. It's uncomfortable. However, if you do this for about 5 minutes, it stops being uncomfortable. So we've got to learn to ask. We have to learn to say no to things that are time wasters. We have to learn how to, you know, prioritize our values, do the things that are uncomfortable. And so basically what happens is when you take 100% responsibility, you give up making excuses, you give up making complaints, you give up blaming. And for most people, they spend most of their time in a bar at night blaming the government, talking about how bad their boss is, wishing they had a different wife or husband, etc. And, you know, it's interesting. Let's look at complaining for just a moment. If I'm complaining about my wife, it means I have to have a reference point in my head that there's a better woman out there that I'd be happier with. If every woman on the planet died except my wife, I would never complain anymore because she's the only one that exists. So basically, what I have to do is be willing to change. I have to be willing to take a risk to find either work with my wife to do something different or go out and take a risk and find a better woman. You never hear anyone complain about gravity. Why not? Because gravity can't be changed. So we only complain about things we can change. We complain about the weather because we know there's better weather somewhere like in Spain or the south of France or the north coast of Africa, whatever. And so instead of going there, or instead of moving to someplace like Hawaii or Bali or whatever, what we do is we sit around and we complain about the weather instead of doing something. And so giving up blaming, complaining, and excuse making, taking 100% responsibility, then now if we know we created our experience, we can uncreate it and recreate it the way we want it. Otherwise, we always think we're at the effect of someone else. So that's a critical first principle. Second principle that's really most important is to get clear about what you want and to believe you can have it. And so I ask people to make a list of 101 goals that you want to achieve before you die. Places you want to visit, things you want to do, how much money you want to make, what your body weight's going to be. Maybe you want to complete a triathlon, whatever it is. And then start setting specific measurable goals, how much by when. In other words, I want to lose weight is not a goal, but I will weigh 155 pounds by June 3rd, 2018 at 5 p.m. That's a goal. What we now know is research shows that if you take a goal and you write it down, the mere act of writing it down increases your likelihood of you're going to act on it and achieve it by 1,100%. That means instead of 4% acting on their goal, 44% of people actually do. There's research on that. And so basically most people don't have written goals, or they have written goals for their finances or their job, but they don't have written goals for their weight, for their fun time, how many vacation days they want to take. They don't have written goals for the quality of their relationships, what they want to do with the people they're in relationship with, etc. So it's really critical that we set specific measurable goals. And one of the things I'll be teaching in the seminars I do with you guys is how to create a breakthrough goal. A goal that if you were to achieve it would quantum leap you to the next level of your career or your life, like doubling or tripling your income, like having your own television show, like writing a best-selling book, like becoming the top salesperson in your organization, or be getting elected to public office, whatever it might be. And so having goals is critical. You go and you ask most people in North America and Europe what's their goals for the year, and they can't tell you. They just want to survive, they want to get by, they want to have fun, but they don't know, they don't have their specific goals. So that's real critical. The third thing is that you have to believe it's possible that you're going to get your goal. Most people, they just don't believe it. And so belief is a choice. Belief is a choice. This is so clearly important to get, that you can choose to believe anything. Most people think I have to have evidence in order to believe something. The fact is, once you believe something and hold on to it long enough, the evidence will show up. Some people call that faith, some people call it blind faith, but it really is a choice to believe that anything's possible. When I started out, I didn't believe I could write a best-selling book. I didn't believe I could be a multimillionaire. I didn't believe I could sit in the White House and have dinner with the president. I didn't believe any of that. But my mentor said, just choose to believe it. Create some pictures. Back then we didn't have Photoshop. We used to have to cut things out and put them together, a little collage of things. But I did all that, and I set a goal to make $100,000 in 1 year. And at the time I was making $8,000 a year. And so I made a, I made a $100,000 bill and I put it on the ceiling. It was just a big piece of green paper that I drew on, made it look like a $100,000 bill. And I started visualizing that I would have a $100,000 a year lifestyle. Within 1 year, I was making over $100,000. I 12 times my income in 1 year. And my wife was even skeptical it could work. However, once it worked, she was like doing the same thing with the clothes she wanted, the places she wanted to visit, so on and so forth. So it's really critical that you believe it and then you want to visualize it. This is another key principle. Most people don't do this. They talk about it, they read about it, but they don't do it. Take 2 to 5 minutes every day. Close your eyes like I'm doing now, and then visualize the outcome you want. See yourself looking out through your eyes. This is a big mistake some people make when they visualize. They see themselves out there walking across the stage getting their doctoral degree instead of seeing their hand reaching out and that diploma being put in their hand. So you always want to visualize what you would see out through your eyes, and then feel the feelings you would feel if you'd already achieved that goal. And then hear the sounds you would hear. So it's auditory, visual, kinesthetic. If you have 5 goals, do that for like 30 seconds with each of those 5 goals. If you have 1 goal, do it for 2 or 3 minutes. Really get into it, feel it. Make it a moving picture. When you do that, you activate the law of attraction to attract things to you, because there's something called the internet, which means that you have the ability to send a spam email to the entire universe through the quantum field, because every thought you think can be picked up over 25,000 miles away. We know that from experiments that were done with astronauts on the moon who would open up envelopes with forms in it, like a square or a circle or a triangle or a pentagon. And then they would look at that for a minute while graduate students at Duke University would go into meditation and see if they could pick up what the astronaut was looking at. And they had it almost perfect every time. So we know without radio waves, without television waves, without the internet, etc., we're able to pick up thoughts at a great distance away. You've all had the experience of thinking of somebody and then all of a sudden the phone rings and it's them. So either you were thinking about them and sending the message, I'm thinking about you, or they were thinking about you and you picked up the message as they were thinking to call you. So the reality is when you're visualizing, believing, acting as if it's going to happen, then what happens is anyone that can assist you that has a similar purpose or goal gets activated to come into your space. And you start noticing things that, you know, you're also reprogramming the brain. Like right now, as you're listening to this, you're not aware of what you're feeling in your right foot. But as soon as I say right foot, you can feel that because the information is streaming up your spine from your foot, but it's being filtered out by the reticular activating system in the base of your brain because it's not important, quote unquote. Well, there's things in your environment all the time that are there that can help you be successful, but you don't see them because your brain hasn't been programmed to see them as important. Once you do, then what happens is they come into consciousness and you notice them and they become resources that were always there that you can now use. And so you also activate your creativity. When I'm visualizing, the subconscious goes, oh, you want that? I'll figure out how to get that. I will come up with a solution, an idea, a breakthrough creative idea. But when you don't do that, it doesn't do that. See, we do that naturally when we get an obsession. We get obsessed with, I want a certain car, I want to date that person, I want to go to that vacation spot. And then all of a sudden, the brain starts figuring out ways to do it because we're obsessed with it. Well, we want to purposely become obsessed with our goals, and we do that through visualization and affirmation. So that's another principle. And then finally, I would say combine 3 principles into one, which is action, feedback, and perseverance. Most people think about things, but they don't take action. They're afraid of rejection, they're afraid of failure, they're afraid of loss. And so I teach something called the rule of 5. Every day, do 5 things that will take you toward the achievement of your breakthrough goal. And so whether it's 5 phone calls, like with Chicken Soup for the Soul, which you held up, Ilka, in the beginning, that book took us 14 months before we hit a bestseller list. But every single day we did 5 things. We would call 5 radio stations to see if we could get interviews. We'd call 5 churches to see if we could come and maybe give a talk at their church and sell books in the back of the room. We would send out 5 press releases. We would call 5 stores on the military bases to see if they're carrying our book. If not, we'd send them a free copy to review. But every day, 5 things. If you go to the largest tree in Finland or Norway or Estonia or Germany or anywhere in the world with a sharp axe, and you take 5 hits at that tree every day with that axe, I don't care how big that tree is, eventually it's going to fall over. And so consistent, persistent action every single day toward your goal is critical. And we suggest have a few goals you put a lot of energy into, and then you can have some secondary goals you put less energy into, but you have to be prioritized to do the most important thing. And then respond to feedback. Not every action works. When Mark and I started selling Chicken Soup for the Soul, you know, we started calling up multi-level marketing companies, network marketing companies, and seeing if they would buy like 1,000 copies for their downline. And the first 10 or 12 phone calls we did it all wrong. And we kept saying, well, how can we do this right? What would it have taken for you to say yes? And then eventually we got it down. So you got to be willing to make a mistake and learn from the mistake. Some people are so afraid of doing it wrong, they never take any action. So, and then finally, persevere. Don't give up. Chicken Soup for the Soul was rejected by 144 publishers. If we'd given up after 100 rejections, I wouldn't be on this webinar today. No one would be listening. No one would know me. No one would care. And I could give you 20 examples of that kind of thing where you just have to persevere in the face of rejection, in the face of obstacles, until you get the result you want. So it's never too late to start. You're never too young to start. As long as you use these principles, you know, you'll get a lot more success. I'll just add one more thing, and that is that you've got to use a principle we call the compound effect. And the compound effect says this, that little things done consistently over time every day get you better results. For example, the rule of 5. For example, if you were to meditate for 10 minutes a day, everyone says, I don't have time to meditate. 10 minutes a day, that'd be 3,650 days or minutes a year. That would give you 60 hours of meditation. That's the equivalent of 1.5 40-hour work weeks. Your consciousness would get clearer. Your access to creativity, to divine intervention, to inspiration, because inspired ideas create much faster success than non-inspired ideas. So little things like that, exercising, watching less TV, all those things add up over time to hours and hours and hours and hours and hours that get you that competitive edge. So those are some of the principles I would mention today.
That's a really great overview. So you got 6 instead of 5. So did I get it right? That was take 100% responsibility, have your goals written down, believe in yourself, and visualize, respond to feedback, and compound effect. So this was the 6th one.
Yes.
One of the success principles also in your book, Success Principles, was so you are doing it here. We asked you 5, you just gave us 6. So that's really great. Another principle, but how can people really apply those principles in their life in a way that make really change and gives them results what they're looking for? Because that's also, I see people asking here. So how can I get to next level in my life, as Angela was asking here, and so.
Well, I think what you have to do is you take these principles we just talked about, you turn them into daily disciplines. So the key to success is not like working hard for a weekend, but every day, consistent over time. That's what gets you to where you want to go. So let's say you want to have more friends, then you could invite 2 people to have lunch with you every day. Someone will say yes. If you want to make more money, you could decide you're going to make 3 more sales calls today than you normally do. You're going to get up an hour earlier. You're going to watch 1 hour less TV and read something valuable. You're going to exercise for 20 minutes, but make it a daily discipline. And when you do that, what happens is that you get this compound effect occurring. So see, if we're going along like this and you start doing 3 things a day different, eventually by the time we get out a year, we're this far apart. And so the main thing, I would say a couple things. First of all, the power of reading. One of our principles is learn more to earn more. I read for 2 hours a day. And I'm not talking about novels. I'm talking about self-help books, finance, psychology, motivation, the law, communication skills, leadership, those kind of things. And if you keep learning something every day, then over time, you learn a lot. Another thing I would recommend, if you can build 1 new habit every 3 months into your life, whether it's reading, exercising, meditating, being grateful, thanking people, being appreciative, sending out 5 emails saying how you changed my life, I really appreciate it, whatever it is, then what happens is that in a year, you have 4 new habits. In 10 years, you'd have 40 new habits. If you had 40 new habits, imagine how much more effective your life would be. Like one of my habits, it's kind of weird, but I wanted to be in shape. I'm 72 years old. So, I've been doing this stuff for 50 years. But I noticed as I was getting older, I wasn't as strong as I used to be. So every time I go to the bathroom, when I come out of the bathroom, I do 10 push-ups on the floor. And so that little habit gets me to do like 40 or 50 push-ups a day. And so that's keeping my muscles strong. It's keeping me flexible. It's keeping me more energized. I take, about 34 supplements a day, vitamins, minerals, herbs, and homeopathics and things like that. So I stay young and healthy, meditation. So whatever it is, just give yourself the task of building in new habits so you have all these habits of success that become disciplines that you do on a consistent level. And that takes time, but the reality is, someone once said, a good story, a friend of mine is a peak performance researcher, and he found this woman in Florida who lifted her grandson was 6 years old. 2 of her grandchildren were playing in the car, and one of them released the emergency brake, and the car wheel went over the grandson who was 6's leg, and he couldn't get it out. The grandmother, who was 65, comes out and lifts up the back of the car, and the boy pulls the leg out. And she said, I don't know how I did that, because the most I'd ever lifted before was 50 pounds. And so this got written about in the newspaper. My friend saw it, and he called her and said, could I interview you? I want to see what happened. How were you able to do that? She said, I don't talk about the event. And she hung up on him. And so he went to Florida. He was on another trip, and he went to her house on a Sunday morning. He knocked on her door, and he said, I'm here. I really want to talk to you about this event. She said, well, the reason I don't talk about it is that when you're 65 years old and you do something you didn't think you could do, the question you have to ask yourself is, what else in my life didn't I do that I could have done? Excuse me. And now you have to ask yourself the question, did I waste my life? And so he said, well, is there something you always wanted to do you didn't do? And she said, yeah, I always wanted to be a geologist. He said, well, what would you have to do to be a geologist? She said, well, I'd have to go back to school and study for 4 years. I'll be 69 by the time I finished. And he said, here's the good news and the bad news. 4 years from now, you're going to be 69 no matter what. If you don't go back to school, you'll be 69 and you're not a geologist. If you go back to school, you'll be 69 and you're a geologist. So start now. So it's never too late. She went back to school. She became a geologist. She now teaches geology at a local community college, and she's very, very happy. And so the trick is, don't believe it's not possible. If you set your mind to it, you can achieve anything. And we have so much more capacity than we believe we have to achieve anything we want. But building those habits over time, and then you eventually get to your goal. Hold on one second. I'm going to unplug my earphones and clear my throat. Otherwise, it's going to make a huge noise. I don't have a mute button. Hold on one second. Okay, I'm back.
Great. Thank you. That was so inspiring. I'm always inspired when you said you're 72, and when you go to the toilet, after that you do 10 push-ups.
Yeah, well, what you want to do, you want to link a habit to something you're already doing. Like, so, you know, if you're already going to go to the store every time, you know, maybe when you come out of the store, you walk around the block once, and that becomes connected to the habit of going to the store. So you're linking things that you already do with things you want to do. There's a lot of research on that, and that helps it happen much more efficiently.
Yeah, I actually have that same habit, and that's why I was like, oh, you have that too, and that's why you're so fit. And then, well, that's good. And my question actually was that, you know, what would be the best way to you know, get new habits in your life? Because I know many people have that. They are struggling. You know, they would like to create a new habit, but they just can't do it. They might start and end it with just few days or so. So
well, couple of ideas for you. Couple of ideas. Number one, when you decide to do anything new, make a public declaration that you're doing it. Now everyone knows and is expecting you to follow through. Number two, keep score. Have a little worksheet, an Excel spreadsheet, a graph paper, whatever it is, and put down every day what the day is, and then put down, I did it, or how many you did, like, you know, 20 push-ups or 15 sit-ups or whatever it might be, or you made 5 phone calls or 3 sales calls. So I have a grid. It's in my house. I'm in my office right now, but I'd show you. It's got about 32 things on it that I do every single day. Take my vitamins, meditate, exercise, do breathing exercises, you know, get how many hours of sleep, you know, whatever. And so that becomes a scorecard. We know that we improve on things we keep score of. So scorekeeping is critical to success. It's kind of a no BS approach to things. The other thing is, if you can find a partner to agree to do this with you. So if you're going to exercise, maybe you meet on the corner and you go for a run, or you meet at the gym and you play racquetball, or you talk to each other every night and say, did you do it? So now I've got some accountability built in with an accountability partner. The other thing is, build in rewards for achieving the goal. Like, you know, every month if you do it, your 30 days, maybe you get to go out to dinner with, you know, your friend, or you get to buy yourself something, or you get to go to a special movie, or whatever it might be. And also give yourself a consequence for not doing it. One of my friends, Martin Root, decided he wanted to learn to dive off a diving board. He was very afraid of heights and diving into the pools and things. And so he made a declaration that he was going to do it, told us all he was going to do it. And then he gave himself the consequence that if he didn't do it, he was going to write a check for $1,000 to the Ku Klux Klan which is a very racist organization. Martin happens to be Jewish, and they happen to be anti-Semitic. And so he said, I knew that I would never want to write that check. I made a deal once that if I didn't lose 30 pounds by a certain date, I would invite 40 people in one of my workshops to my house for dinner. My wife hates large groups. So I knew that if I didn't lose that 30 pounds, my wife was going to be so mad at me for doing that. So I literally, I think the last 4 days I fasted. I didn't eat anything. I sat in the sauna. I was exercising like hell because I knew I wanted to achieve that goal, because there was a consequence for not achieving it that I had stated publicly. So these are some things that can help you create a goal or create a habit or a new behavior and actually achieve it.
That's a great advice again. So we have now, people are asking some questions as well.
Sure.
So we take some from them, and so I see here people asking, how did you trigger the changes in your life? What was something that triggered that? Well, I'm gonna do that now, but not just the thinking, well, I'm gonna do that, but what actually made you make the changes in your life?
Well, first of all, it's always just a decision you make. It's a choice. Now, sometimes the choice comes because it gets so bad, like in AA, which is the Alcoholics Anonymous, they talk about hitting bottom. Like your wife leaves you, you lose your job, you wake up almost, in your own vomit because you've thrown up during the night, you almost died. And some part of you goes, I can't do this anymore. This is not working. The other thing is, you don't have to get to the bottom. You can simply make a choice at any point. I want something better. I want a better relationship. I want more money. I want more free time. I want to be happier, whatever it is. And then you simply make a choice, publicize that choice, put it on your website, put it on your Facebook page, tell your friends. Then build in a support system like a mastermind group or an accountability partner that you'll talk to every day that keeps you on track. Most calls like this, we have solo entrepreneurs that have called in. People that have their own consulting business, coaches, people that are salespeople. They're in charge of their own schedule. And so they don't have a boss telling them what to do. And so we tend to avoid doing the uncomfortable things. So you need to have somebody. Like if I tell my secretary to call the White House and see if I can talk to the president, she probably doesn't think she's going to get through any more than I do right now. But she's going to do it because I told her to, because she's my employee and I expect her to do what I tell her. So we tend to put off the uncomfortable things. So rather than waiting until you're overweight, unhealthy, get cancer, have an automobile accident, your dog, bites you, your girlfriend leaves you, whatever, make a decision to what it is you want and then declare today is the day. Today is the turning point. And if you can do that and do it with a group of people, maybe 3 or 4 people, that I call it a mastermind group. You can call it a dream team, a success club, makes it so much easier. And that's why it's valuable to come to seminars like you guys are putting on, because then you meet other people who are like-minded and committed to their success, and you can hook up with them to become mastermind partners and accountability partners. I see both of you. There you go.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Great. Yeah. We just keep us muted. So there's many questions, and that this. Actually, this is something that you can shortly answer because it's just a short question.
Sure.
And I'm inspired also to know that. Who was your first mentor?
Well, let's see. If I go back, I think it was W. Clement Stone. He's the one I mentioned earlier, who was worth $600 million. I was a normal kid I grew up in West Virginia, which is one of the worst states economically. It's where the coal miners live. We had the 48th worst education system in the country. My father made $8,000 a year. So I was just a normal kid trying to get by. And then a friend of mine, I was in graduate school learning to be a teacher, public school teacher, and I was in a laundromat, and this guy came over and said, put your book down and talk to me. And so I did. And he said he was going up to this lecture series at a nearby college. Would I like to join him? And I said, sure. We became best friends for a couple of years. And I went there, and it was the guy speaking on human potential. He said, we're only using 10% of our brain, 10% of our potential. And I said, wow, I want to learn to use more. So how do I do that? And he said, well, there's this place called the W. Clement and Jesse V. Stone Foundation where they run workshops. Why don't you go there? You live here in Chicago. So I did. And over the course of 2 years, I think I took 37 workshops, weekend workshops. They were about $90 back then, you know, so I did it. And I ran out of money, so I started volunteering. You know, I would set up chairs and do whatever so that I could get in them free. And during that period of time, I actually met W. Clement Stone, took a workshop called Achievement Motivation. How do you motivate people to achieve more? Because I wanted to do that with my students. And I learned these principles from him. I started applying them to my own life. I doubled my income, and next year I tripled my income. I was happier. I wasn't afraid of girls anymore. I had more dates. I started making more money. You know, everything was working because of him. And he was just a businessman who wanted to make a difference and was offering seminars. So he was my first mentor. And then I've had probably 50 mentors since then. You know, I reach out to anybody who knows something and ask if they will give me an hour of their time, or can I take them to dinner. A friend of mine, Keith Ferrazzi, wrote a book called Never Eat Alone. So every time you go out to a meal, invite someone to come with you that you can, you know, pump their brain for ideas, brainstorm, etc. Most people are willing to share with you their secrets of success because they know most people won't ever act on them anyway. So a lot of people want to pass it on.
Great fun again. Thank you, Jack. So one more question we have here is people ask, like, how do not fall back in the beginning, which I guess what they mean is like when they get going, how do not fall back from what you have a goal, you want to get to this big thing, and how do not fall back? What are some of your advice on that?
Well, I kind of mentioned it, which is I think if you have an accountability partner, let's say you're my accountability partner, Roland, and every day you and I get on the phone for 5 minutes, or we get on Skype or Google Hangout or however we communicate, and you tell me the 5 things you're going to do today, and I tell you the 5 things I'm going to do today, and then tomorrow we get on and just 5 minutes again so it doesn't become burdensome. And I tell you if I did my 5 things or not. No excuses. I can't give excuses. And if I didn't do it, you say, are you willing to recommit to it? And so in a sense, I have a coach that I don't have to pay for. And so now I'm staying on track because I have you as my partner. Also, keep score of what you do. The coolest thing is when you start doing these things, you get results. The results reinforce you. You're losing weight. You're making more money. You're having more fun. You're feeling more alive, more generative. You're creative. You're loving your life more. It's kind of like, you know, you had Eric Edmeades behind you. That does the Wild Fit thing, and you know he doesn't eat badly because he feels so good. You know, when he didn't feel good and he started feeling better, the feeling better was the reinforcement to keep doing it. And so as you start having successes and you realize, you know, I mean, I live an amazing lifestyle right now. Little Jackie Canfield from Wheeling, West Virginia, whose dad made $8,000 a year. You know, I sometimes make $8 million a year, personal income. And so I don't want to mess that up. Well, when I start having success, you keep doing the thing that's working. And here's the thing, most people give up too soon. I think that's probably part of the question, is that how do you persevere long enough when you're not seeing immediate results? And that's where you have to have faith and believe these principles work, because people like me and others who've written books tell you they do. And so believe it long enough until you get the result. And if you're not getting the results you want, one of the things is, there are several things that are true. Either you have limiting beliefs that are sabotaging you, and that's why the work that, you know, EFT tapping, NLP, the Sedona method, Byron Katie's work, you can go to Byron Katie on the internet, go to thework.com, thework.org. They teach you how to get rid of these limiting beliefs. And the second thing that happens is people are simply afraid to take action. And that's why having a partner. My ex-wife, who was a counselor, wanted to do couples workshops, and she was afraid to call up people and ask them to come to the seminar. And so she got her best friend to come over and sit by her, and her best friend held her hand while she dialed the phone. And after about 10 phone calls and nothing bad happened and 2 people signed up, she said, you can go home now, I'm okay with this. So sometimes you just need someone to sit with you and support you and believe in you and reinforce you so you get through it. And once you do it, then you become confident. Confidence is the result of successfully surviving a risk. If everyone understood how valuable risk-taking was, they would just do it all day long. Because everyone that's listening to this has survived every risk that you ever experienced, or you wouldn't be here. And so it's never as bad as we think it's going to be. And so I just encourage people, you know, take the risk, hang in there, Surround yourself with support. Believe it's possible. Read something every day that's uplifting and inspiring. You know, if you just even take 15 minutes and read a self-help book, watch a TED Talk on the internet, you know, go to YouTube and watch something inspirational and uplifting. You know, myself, Tony Robbins, Les Brown, Lisa Nichols, you know, John DeMartini, we all have videos there you can watch for free. And just keep yourself in that space. You know, you guys are putting on seminars. And a lot of times people say, well, I went to a seminar once and it only lasted for about 4 months. And then I was back to my normal self. Well, that's like saying I filled up my car with gas once and it ran out. So why do that again? In other words, if you know that every 4 months you go to a seminar and you get motivated and it lasts for 4 months, then go to 4 seminars a year. You know, do whatever it takes to keep yourself in the right mindset as you build the skill sets that will give you the results that you want.
Thank you. This is so exciting. And one of the things is to attend the webinar with us. So
yeah, exactly.
Keep you on track. And yeah, I've noticed the same things with people, with our clients. Those who come again and again, they seem to get further and further. The thing that, you know, we want to have this webinar because you're coming to Finland and Estonia, and we want all the people online. By the way, I want to thank you all who are online, because you're so into this webinar. You're writing all the time, and so would you tell, Jack, what people when they come to our event in Helsinki or Tallinn, what they will learn from you in that event? You know, what would be the reasons why to come? Because I think they've got a lot of by the feedback from this already. But you know, what are the reasons really to come to the seminar?
Well, we've spent about 40 minutes on this webinar so far, and there's been a lot of good ideas, I think. However, they're just ideas. And what I teach is critical for behavior change to occur is you can't just listen to something, you have to experience it. Excuse me. So what happens is, I'm just getting over a cold, so I'm getting mucus in my throat. So what happens is that when you come to a seminar, in addition to being exposed to a lot of great ideas, you're going to be exposed to them in a certain sequence. And we're going to do an exercise or two on each one. So rather than just talking about goals, you'll set goals. Rather than just talking about life purpose, we will do an exercise to help you get in touch with your unique life purpose. Rather than talking about mastermind groups or accountability partners, who have an opportunity to actually choose someone that can be in your mastermind group or your accountability partner. Instead of talking about meditation, I'll teach you a very short, powerful little meditation technique that you can do every morning or every night to actually take your life to a whole new level. The other thing that's really critical about being in a live seminar, if you saw the movie The Secret, you remember there was a physicist in that movie, John, I'm forgetting his last name right now. But anyway, he's a Harvard-trained physicist, John Hagelin's his name. And he said something so powerful. He talked about the power of an intention. So if I have an intention to change my behavior, to exercise more, to pursue my goal, to make more requests, whatever it might be, when I'm in a room with 100 people, the power of intention, he says, is the square of the number of people holding the same intention. So right now there's 3 of us literally on this call that I can see your faces. So the power of our intention to make a difference is 9, 3 times 3. Let's say there's 4,000 people on this call. The power of that intention of everyone wanting to be successful, what happens is that 4,000 times 4,000 is 16 million. So the intention is really, really strong to support everybody's intention of getting more successful. So being in that room, the energy field that's created out of that common intention brings everybody into a state of flow that makes it much easier to break through their barriers, because we'll do an exercise on getting in touch with a limiting belief and how that's stopping you and replacing that with a positive belief. We'll do many, many exercises. Like we talk about 100% responsibility. There's a language of responsibility, giving up words like can't, have to, try. We can say that, but if you do an exercise where I have you do something for about 3 minutes, where you actually see and experience the difference that they energetically, those words change in your body, then what happens is you go, oh my God, I'm sold now. You've experienced it, and there's a number of things we'll do like that. So people will leave with a system of activities and behaviors that they've experienced, not just heard about, that they can now apply in their life. And it's like going through a car wash. You put your car through a car wash, it comes out on the other side, it's cleaner. And so when you go through a live seminar with me, it's like you come out the other side and you've been cleaned of some of the negativity, the fears, the limiting beliefs, the ignorance that's kept you stuck. And you'll come out as part of a community of people that you can connect with and continue to connect with after the seminar. So it's very, very, very profound. See if there's anything else. We'll practice visualization. We'll look at what are some of the things that you can do that are behaviors and habits that will give you the compound effect that you want to achieve. I will tell you this. When I do a seminar, the only complaint people ever give on their evaluation forms is, I wish the seminar had been longer because I could have listened to him for 2 days. So I promise you, if you come, you will be very, very happy you did. I'm reading something from Miko. It says, I was in your seminar in 2014 in LA. So now that I'm listening to somebody, it was just like a warm up, So basically, this is great. I'm loving watching some of the questions and the feedback over here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's good feedback. I think we lost us Roland. I hope.
Yes, I don't see him there anymore.
Yeah, but no worries. So for every one of you who are online now, really, this is first time Jack Canfield is coming on our area, Finland and Estonia, and this is a great possibility to see him here. You don't have to travel anywhere else, like outside Europe. I don't know. Do you talk even so much in Europe, but mainly in the States?
Well, I do travel. I was just in Dublin in January. There was a conference there with 2,000 people called the Pendulum Summit, very similar to what you're putting on in Finland. I've spoken in Poland once before. I've spoken in a number of different countries, but I only usually come maybe once a year to Europe. Usually do 2 or 3 countries like I'm doing with you guys. I'm going to Moscow and in Russia in April or May, one of those 2. But mostly I work in the United States, and a lot of my work now is being done like this over the internet. So, wherever you are in Europe, take advantage. Go to one of these seminars, because I don't come there that often.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a great chance. And we just put a banner there on the right side. So if you want to check out these events, we have one in Tallinn and one in Helsinki. So in Helsinki, we will have a 2-day event where Jack will be speaking half day. And in Tallinn, there will be another 1-day event where you can also attend. So this will be really good events for your personal development. We've been doing this for many years and trying to get the best coaches and trainers and speakers from all over the world, and create the best environment for you to go further in your life and learn things that you were not teaching in school. So check out the event and check out our offers. I know Tallinn just started the sales. There's the first day is basically today to buy tickets publicly. So there will be really limited offer. Just take the offer now. And in Helsinki, we are actually our offer for the ticket expires today. So you want to take the offer, you will save 100 euros if you book today. So it's a good saving. And we have a total guarantee. So with both of the events, so if you feel anyway unsatisfied after the event, you can ask your money back. So we want to do things that you can really apply to your life. So if you don't get what you came for, then we don't want your money, basically. So that's our policy. We want you to be satisfied and get as much as you can from the event, and we do our best for that. So we also promise that in the end of this webinar, we will choose few people that will win tickets to these events. So it might be a value of 300, 400 euros. So really nice price for a few people, and we decided to pick them in the end. But before that, I want to thank at this point, Jack, that you have given us this time. This is I know that you don't do that often, these kind of webinars for events. So thank you for doing this. This was a real honor and pleasure.
My pleasure. I love you guys. You guys are really cool people that are doing amazing things. You're trying to bring consciousness and empowerment and inspiration and motivation to people that desperately need it. And you know what's required in the world right now is we need people like you guys and other people that are on this call who are in the coaching, teaching, speaking, transformational healing business, because the problems of the world right now can't be solved by going to Google and getting more information. The problems of the world right now are only going to be solved through a transformation of consciousness and people understanding better how to be more effective in their lives to create the world we all want.